Hello friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with the most delicious revenge story you've ever heard. The presence of Karen as a victim adds even more charm to the story. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I'm allergic to your food. A few years ago, I was working as a travel nurse in a small unit at a Miami hospital. It was a great group of people, mostly. People brought local food in and were very social, so I started baking and bringing southern items to share. After I brought in some pecan pound cake one day, another traveler thought she'd be kind and bring in some walnut brownies. That's when Karen erupted. You always bring in this food for everyone, but it's got nuts, and I'm allergic to nuts. You aren't bringing in food for me. Mind you, Karen never brought in food for everyone. She was always there to eat it and talk about how she made a better version, but not once did she ever bring food in. And she never said anything like, "Those look great, but I'm allergic to nuts," hint, hint, like a functioning adult would. We would have gotten the hint and tried to accommodate her allergies. After she finished her rant and stormed out, the other three of us that were in the break room, me, the other traveler, and my work wife, looked at each other, then said at the same time, "Oh, it's on." For the next few weeks, we brought in food every day, without fail, and every bit of it had nuts in it. I made chunky chocolate pecan bars, someone else brought homemade banana nut bread, another got cinnamon rolls with sprinkled nuts from one of the best bakeries in the city. Even the docs got in on it by ordering cupcakes one day with nuts on all of them. I brought in Nutella, we made hazelnut coffee to go with my mom's pecan pie. We dined like royalty that month, while Karen could only sniff and simmer. It was glorious. I'm allergic to your food. Okay, then don't eat it. Eat your own food and I'll eat mine. Problem solved. And our second story. Use the law to withhold my deposit? Well, okay, here we go. I moved to California in 2010 and had lined up a house on a 3-acre property with a nice-sized detached barn. We were on a rent-to-own to allow time to get settled and secure the loan to buy the property, so we had a standard California rental agreement. With a handshake agreement, it would not be needed once we purchased the house. Couple little things to fill in. The female owner was a realtor, so there was a reasonable expectation she knew what she was doing. The husband was weird. I can't explain it past that, but part of the agreement was we actually bought the horse that was boarded on the property. And also, they had the detached barn full of their old crap with the agreement that it would be removed by the owners once we purchased. So we move in, things are going fairly good. We had several cats at the time, but to keep the house cleaned up, we had one cat prone to accidents, but for the most part, we kept everything good. Sometimes during the winter, we'd have an issue with the septic system. The owner proceeds to let it slip that the septic was not put in legally and was not correct. Okay, they still paid for the repairs. A month or so later, a water line the husband installed to use for watering the horse broke, and again find out it was not done correctly. This time, I was forced to pay for it. Okay, cool. Once I found out about the septic, I started looking for other houses and found one available, and we were able to get it. At this point, I give the owner about 2 months' notice. We'd done some improvements on the property, including a tack shed for all the horse gear. My stepdaughter loved horses, and the horse was hers. So almost immediately, the owner's attitudes changed, and I realized we're now in for a long 2 months. We're slowly moving into the new house as we have time. During this time, the owner was randomly showing up without 24 hours notice, California law, attempting to show the house with zero warning. And the best one, she started inspecting the house before we were even moved out. At this point, we were about 75% moved. The new house was on 12.5 acres, and we didn't have a pen to put the horse and goats into. One day, I get home from work, and we have to call a vet out. Owner's daughter, who used to own the horse, decided to give the horse and our 2 goats a year's worth of glucosamine supplements for the horse. We ended up with a several $100 vet bill. So we sped things up and ended up clearing a few weeks early. Because of this, there were a few odds and ends left behind, including a wooden run-to for the goats. I spent about $500 on cleaning alone to make sure we got our deposit back, and even brought in a professional cleaning service to finish the house up. I spent many times moving from base housing while military, this is common, so we complete the final walkthrough with the owner. She seems happy. She says we'll figure everything out and send me a check. Okay, cool. About 4 weeks after the original move-out date, I get a large manila envelope in the mail from the owner. Strange, but okay, cool. I open it. She's trying to charge me in the neighborhood of $2,500 on top of the $2,000 deposit she's keeping. Okay, lady, let's see what you got. In the envelope is about 10 small mailer envelopes and about 300-ish pictures of various things on the property and in the house, along with a 6-page letter outlining what I owe her for. So I start reading. Couple hundred for trash removal, including a list of items removed and the receipt for removal. Several hundred for paint. During the walkthrough, I offered to paint the rooms we'd painted. One was an obnoxious cotton candy pink, and the owner said no, it was fine. There's also a charge for close to $3,000 for brand new carpeting and high-end padding from Lowe's, as well as the receipt and also an itemized charge for labor. I believe there were a few other items, but I don't have the paperwork in front of me. Now, my first reaction was pure rage. I was seeing red. I wrote the nastiest letter to her 3 different times and took a step back. She'd threatened to take me to court. QMC. I pulled up California rental laws, and at the time there was a great website that explained what an owner could legally charge you for. So I sat down and I believe the entire letter and responded to her with around 15 pages. The highlights. I was not responsible for the painting or labor associated with, as I'd provided the final inspection that did not note any issues with paint color. I was not responsible for the trash removal, as she listed one item that was ours, the plywood run-to in the field, and the items actually listed were all her personal items removed from the detached barn, and it was not my responsibility. I was not responsible for paying the emergency plumbing repair, mentioned earlier, and I provided the bill, and the fact that it was an emergency is it was flooding over half the property and making entrances to the property impossible. The best one was the last one, the carpets. So in her letter, she mentioned a horrible smell of cat urine, which she proceeds to explain occurred during the illegal inspections. She also had provided documentation on the cost of materials, including all her purchases. The best part? They were all dated prior to our final walkthrough. No matter the result, she was replacing that carpet. So California law is very specific on what the owner can charge for carpets. At the final walkthrough, she was okay with the carpets, but then changed her mind a few days later. So I explained to the letter that I was responsible for roughly 1/30th of the cost replacement, as she graciously showed me the 10-year-old carpet was good for 30 years. So due to the fact that it was normal wear and tear, I agreed to cover that portion. It was only a couple hundred. Now in her letter, she threatened legal action as well. So I put everything together, including a final breakdown of what was owed to her and what was owed to me, and it was close to $1,500. I also informed her I was ready to take the case to court if she didn't agree with me, as that was the next legal step. About a month later, she had 30 days to respond, I get a check for $1,250, and a short note saying she expected this issue was considered resolved. I have never smiled so much cashing a check. I'd be interested to know what your state real estate commission would think of her actions. And our last story. My mom's neighbor is an utterbee. My mom moved to a lovely area that had 4 seasons and quiet living. We lived in a big California, but after my daddy passed, Mom didn't want to bang around in that big house, and she didn't like the prospect of the big one that we were always worried about. After 1 or 2 years of living in her new house, I came up north to visit her for a week, since I hadn't been able to do it for quite a while due to my work. I was parked on the street so that my mom could easily get in and out of her garage. Cool, right? Nope. I went to my car and Karen all but charged me. The conversation went something like this. WTH do you think you're doing? It's illegal to park here. There were no signs that said that. I said, okay, I guess I don't understand. This is a public street and there are no signs. This is where the entitlement really kicked in. My husband was a police detective in the LAPD. Well, good for him. I'm going to go in now. Have a good day. The amount of F's that I gave at this moment was non-existent. I went into the house and didn't really think much more about it. That evening, I was going to a local bar to play a bit of Texas Hold'em. I didn't get all that far and my car started to sputter and then died. Thank God for cell phones. I called the tow company and then my mom. They sent a police officer so no one would accidentally slam into my car. He was totally awesome. It didn't take long and I skipped the poker night since it had already started. The next day, the car repair shop that we got the car taken to called up and told me there was apparently pee in my gas tank. I knew exactly who was involved. I got a sample of what was in the tank and went to the PD so they can take a report, and if it needs, they have evidence. Mom and I went home and parked in the same place. All hell broke loose. Karen: I told you can't park there. That's on my property. Faster than I could have imagined, my mom was in the middle of her cul-de-sac yelling at the wild Karen, "This is a public road. I asked the police and you're in the wrong. How dare you do that to my daughter's car? What kind of sad life you must lead?" Karen started to charge my mom and I stepped in. "Yeah, if you come any closer, I'll have to flatten you. You have no right to talk to my mom that way, let alone charge her like that. Go back to your sad little life and your sad little house." She tried again, but I got in a fighting stance and she let this funky screeching yell and then turned around to go back to her house. Mom and I called the police to file a report of the incident so that it would be reported in case she came up with some BS story. The police told her that I was okay to park where I was and she needs to stay away from my mom and me. Mom was a little shocked that I stepped in like that, but it's a daughter's duty to protect her mom. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.